Hi, welcome to the Maintain Me resource channel. I'm Morgan Jenkins. I'm the director of Maintain Me.
And I'm Chelsea Sweeney. I'm the owner and nurse for Maintain Me.
And today we're going to talk about the 5 levels of senior living. So we are going to start with independent living or 55 plus. So this is your intro into senior living. So if you are maybe just wanting to not keep up with the lawn anymore, you're wanting more social connection and access to different programming, travel programs, and maybe you just want a patio home where somebody does the yard maintenance. These are all the introductory types of senior living, 55 plus they call it, because it's reserved for people age 55 and older. So this is a great downsizing place to use their resources and just enjoy your life and take some of the things off of your plate that you don't enjoy doing anymore. And then you move into independent living or IL. And IL is the next level of, not to say the next level of care, but the next level of services available. So you could get a patio home, or you could do an apartment style living in independent living. And some communities will do independent living with services, independent living without services. So with services can oftentimes mean meals. It may mean activities or a robust activities program. It may also mean housekeeping. So maybe somebody comes in and tidies up your apartment once a week. And these are the types of services usually in an independent living with services. And then I'm going to throw it over to Chelsea to talk a little more about the next level, assisted living.
Yeah, real quick before we move on, Morgan, talk a little bit about the meals for independent living though, because I think a lot of people, when they move into independent living, because you have that restaurant style dining, that they think all that's included. Talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. So independent living with services oftentimes will include a meal plan, but not necessarily. It could be you get like a punch card and you get 30 punches a month and you can use those for whatever meals you'd like. And oftentimes there may be communities, independent living, you pay a little higher price point, maybe in the $2,500 range a month for a 1-bedroom apartment, and you have 3 meals a day. So it increases your price point usually when you're looking to have the meals included, or it's an additional charge to be able to buy a punch card or buy into the meal plan. Does that kind of cover what you were?
Yeah, and if somebody was going into independent living, what are they going to pay? Like, give us some, especially, I mean, we've kind of specialized here in the Denver metro area. So, what are the ranges for independent living? A lot of people think it's significantly cheaper. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so I mentioned a 1-bedroom apartment with meals is probably in the $2,500 range. At like a Holiday Retirement, they're a big independent living provider here nationally, actually. And so that's going to include 3 meals a day, a 1-bedroom apartment, maybe some light housekeeping, and that's it. Now, just like cars, I like the car analogy for senior living. You can get your base model car with your roll-up windows and your hand door locks and a tape deck. And that's it. And that's your bells and whistles. So obviously a little more economical price point, all the way up to your luxury. The car will drive and park itself with all the cameras and all the music and the Bluetooth and everything. So obviously you can have the income level or the economic sedan up to the luxury sedan, and that's the same with senior living. You can get a great price at a nice community without a lot of bells and whistles, all the way up to you're paying $5,000 or more a month for independent living. And we're seeing this more and more, actually, which is interesting. We'll just have to watch how that goes. But I think that, to your point, Chelsea, people do think it's going to be less expensive, but you get what you pay for. So if you're moving to a senior living community because you need help with something or you need services, you are not doing yourself any favors trying to get that lower price point and not have your needs met, because it will end up costing you.
Yeah, I think that's the big point is a lot of people will come to me thinking it's going to be closer to an apartment price point, you know, the 1200s, the 1500s. And reality is that you are paying to have that accessibility of things right there, the activities, the you know, the dining room, those kind of things. So I think it is important to kind of address that myth because it is a little bit more expensive than what people anticipate, but definitely an affordable option for people who are still remaining pretty independent and just need a couple of things to be filling in the blank. So then we move into assisted living, or what we say is AL. And this is when I kind of tell our clients that by the time you need 3 meals and a couple snacks provided for you with minimal effort, as well as some medication management or oversight, you're probably in the gray area between independent living and assisted living. Yes, there are independent livings that can kind of fill in those gaps, but looking at that as a whole, we've seen that people who typically need those things start to do a little better on the assisted living side. The good thing about assisted living is you do have a base rent that is sometimes just as affordable as independent living, especially in the more luxurious space of the 3,500 range. But then you have care level. So people might advertise that their rent is 3,500, which is great. We appreciate that. But at this point, people are starting to need a little bit more, or anticipating that they're going to need care. And so, assisted living can range anywhere between 3,500 sometimes, all the way up to, wow, gosh, Morgan, 8 grand, 10 grand, depending on what they need. And so big range again. In our area, we do see closer to like 4,500, 5,500. I feel like that's a pretty average mean for assisted living. But now we're starting to get into a lot of options. So I'm going to kind of try to go through this very precise, but also not overwhelm people with information, because independent living has a couple different ways that we teach our clients. We teach them that there is the difference in location or setting. And then we teach them that there's difference in payment models. So the 3 settings that we say, not everybody will use these terms, but we felt that it's the easiest to explain, is that it's a residential home is the number one. So that's anywhere between like 8 and 32 maybe people, depending on if it's 2 houses side by side. And then and then the next one up is a small community, is what we call it. That's like 100 or less, or maybe 115 or less. And then we have the larger communities, which we like to say is kind of bigger than 100. And when I'm talking about these numbers, I mean, that's how many units or how many apartments or how many people that they can accept in these communities. So that's one thing, is the setting. And the second thing is the care. So that setting is kind of that base rent, right? That's where that number comes from. Then we have care, different care types. And so you have all-inclusive, meaning your rent and your care is combined and it doesn't fluctuate. And then we have levels of care, meaning that you have your base rent, but then you have maybe A, B, and C cost this, and then X, Y, Z costs this. So if you need any of those type of things, then you would fall under each care level. Another thing that we see more now is, maybe a point system that can kind of fall into an a la care, but we are starting to kind of classify that a little bit more into a la carte still, because the third payment model is a la carte, meaning if you need this, it's this much. If you need this, it's this much. Or if you need this, it's this many points. If you need this, it's this many points. So although bigger communities are starting to see that they're putting these points into levels of care, it still truly is an a la carte system, because it is kind of a puzzle piece that really kind of dictates the pricing. So that's a lot of information. Again, that's why we do what we do, but that's kind of how people differentiate what they need in assisted living. And I think it's really important to understand that it's very customizable, which therefore affects the price, which is why there's such a large range of that pricing. In assisted living, you're also going to start seeing that you need help with maybe 2 or more activities of daily living. That's another term. We call it ADLs, activities of daily living. So, if you're starting to need help with 2 or more things, this might include bathing, dressing, eating, transfers, those type of things, you're really falling into assisted living. Did I miss anything in there, Morgan?
No, I think maybe just when you're talking about a la carte, can you give some examples of what the a la carte services might be?
Sure. So are you talking about, like, if you need a shower 2 times a week versus 3 times a week, that's going to have a different score in your points. If you need, maybe you need to get, to help transferring down to the dining room. That's going to be very different than transfers within your room, right? So understanding that, transfers might be the ADL, activity of daily living, that you need help with, but to the level of transfer help that you need, whether that's just to and from the bathroom versus down long hallways to the dining room, is going to be a very different point system. So understanding that, they kind of put ADLs into different categories, and then they almost level up as to how much help you really need with that. So it's very customizable, which we think is great. Somebody myself would not maybe put somebody in that a la carte payment price that has a progressive disorder, or something that every single day it looks different, because now we know that the price will be dictated on what that help looks like. So that's kind of where our specialty comes in, of helping people understand what setting and payment model might fit them best, so that they can have a long, wonderful quality of life, and still keep a lot of their independence, because we think more is better sometimes, but really it's just getting in the right setting and the right payment that could really help somebody have an awesome life. So
I'm just sitting here listening to you talk about this, and we are both transition referral agents. I can see how we have jobs. And there's a lot of steps, and how do I know I'm making the right decision for my care and for what I can afford and what I want? And so, I mean, just as maybe a pretend family member looking in right now, I would want help with all of that. And I think that is it's a great point.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because what we see all the time is, we're all for do it yourself, right? We're all for educating people. That's the whole point of this channel, is to help people understand. And if you want to do it yourself and you have the support to do it, great. But what we found is people who think they're going to do it by themselves, they get into it and they're like, oh my gosh, I just didn't know there's all these things. And so taking it step by step is just invaluable sometimes, because every step deserves its time and attention. And as well as, we're going through huge life changes when we're helping people. I mean, we are literally helping people make some of their biggest life changes in a time where they're the most vulnerable. So yeah, definitely love what we do. And we're here to educate and teach you. And if none of this makes sense, we're still here to help you through the whole thing.
Yeah.
But if you want to do it yourself, we want you to be able to learn enough from this that you can take this knowledge and you can feel comfortable and confident and educated in your decisions. So, so the next one we're going to talk about is memory care. And this one's kind of complex, because Morgan's going to kind of break it down for you into a couple different memory cares. But first, we're going to talk about the most traditional memory care in our kind of space.
Yeah, thank you, Chelsea. So the first type of memory care we want to talk about is an extension of assisted living. So in this level of care, it's usually private pay. Medicaid does pay for some memory care, but Chelsea's going to touch on that because it falls under long-term care. So the type of memory care I'm focusing on is an extension of assisted living. So we're still working on helping an individual with those activities of daily living that they can't do on their own, but we're taking it a step further, because this person has cognitive impairment, usually in the form of dementia, but it could be a brain injury, it could be a stroke, it could be any number of things that cause the cognitive decline, so that it's warranted a person needs memory care. In order to admit to a memory care and an assisted living, actually, you have to have a doctor's order. So this is a big difference between just a traditional assisted living, because this is a secured placement order that your doctor is signing, which says all other options have been exhausted to keep this person safe. And now we need to look at a memory care, which is usually locked or coded entrances, and also a design where there is a higher level of care ratio. So there's more people there on staff to help because the care needs of the individuals in a memory care are higher. But it's still assisted living. You're still getting 3 meals a day, lots of engagement and activities. It can still fall into the same places like Chelsea was talking about. You could have apartment style memory care, or you could have a smaller residential style memory care. But the big difference is going to be the secured placement piece of this. This individual that needs to be in memory cares may be expressing behaviors that sometimes come with cognitive decline, like sometimes it's aggression with receiving care. Sometimes it's exit seeking or wandering, which I think people think is an automatic part of dementia, and it's not. Only some people have this as a symptom for and need memory care to be secured. So that door needs to be locked for their safety. And that's why that special order from the doctor is required. What am I missing?
Well, actually, I'm just going to touch on this really quick because you made me think of something, and I think it's a myth that we might want to talk about. You talked about memory care being a secure and kind of a coded entrance. So one thing I hear from families, and you can kind of answer this, but one thing I hear from families is once they go into assisted living that they can't go anywhere, they're stuck in there. That's what they feel like. So talk about the differences between that as far as memory care versus assisted living in being able to go out, and what does that look like? Like, why are they different?
Oh yeah. So, rights of the resident are still the foremost priority in any care setting. And in non-COVID times, an assisted living resident can go out to lunch with their friends. They can take a walk. They can do anything. They ask that you sign yourself in and out so that if you sign out and don't come back, they know to go looking for you. Now, in a memory care setting, somebody is not able to safely do this on their own, and that is why the doctor would write that order for them to be in the secured placement. Now, does this mean they can't go out to lunch when their family comes to pick them up? No, you can do that. Again, they would ask that you sign them out so that if you don't come back from lunch, they know to begin looking for you. But, in a memory care, in times that aren't when we don't have all the COVID precautions in place, they do outings, they go to ice cream and movies and all the different things. They just have supervision.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because what we want to stress about these type of care levels is that it's to support you being as independent as possible with aids in place. By the time someone's in memory care, they may or may not be able to do all those things safely, but that doesn't mean that they're not trying to get them out and do things and still enjoy the small pleasures of life. So I don't think
engagement is so important.
Yeah. And this is another thing. Engaging in memory care is about putting people around each other that are on the same page that they can truly enjoy themselves. What we've seen in memory care is if you put an assisted living person with memory care, sometimes they will start to have anxiety, or different things because they know that something's not right, that they're not engaging with that other person, but they can't really tell why. And this doesn't happen all the time, but just sometimes. And so what we see is people who go into memory care and are surrounded by other people who have cognitive decline, they feel a lot more at ease and they start to cultivate some pretty genuine friendships as much as they can, even in the space that they are. And it's actually a really beautiful thing.
It's a great point you make because people with cognitive impairment are constantly coping. Mm-hmm. They're always trying to keep up with where their brain is not providing anymore. So just like Chelsea said, once they get in an environment where they're with their peers, they don't have to mask and cope. They can just be themselves and just notice we're all kind of together in this. And there's a lot of bonding and camaraderie that can happen when you're not trying to mask and cope all the time with those symptoms. So great point, Chelsea. That's kind of what I have for the assisted living memory care. Price point. So, for a shared space, a shared memory care space, which can be a real benefit for some people with memory care symptoms. So don't think, oh, roommate, no go. In memory care, it's different. It's companionship oftentimes. I think that in Denver, the average is around 4,500 a month, usually all inclusive in a residential setting. So that's pretty specific to that care setting. The bigger the community, the more expensive the memory care in almost every case. I don't think it's uncommon for you to see $8,000 a month all inclusive for assisted living memory care in Denver, which is really, really high if you can afford that. But you can go all the way up to that luxury sedan, and that's what that 8,000 or more, even 10,000 per month is. And if you are looking at a community that is in this price range, be sure you have a really good understanding of what your money is going towards. What's that extra $3,000 a month getting you for your value?
Yeah, talk about that really quick. I know I'll talk about the memory care on the other side, but are there any options for people who can't pay that $8,000 a month in those spaces? Like, what does that look like for families?
Yeah, for sure. We have some great options here in Denver that locally owned companies that we can work with. Like I mentioned, that 4,500 for a companion room is in a residential. They may even have a spend down. So maybe you can pay privately up front, but you're spending down assets in order to qualify for Medicaid. That's a whole other Medicaid, and talking about a whole other animal, including InnovAge. But there is some options as long as you have a little bit of money, say $100,000 in the bank, to be able to spend down and still get the memory care support you need. If you don't have that, if you truly are already in the Medicaid range, or you don't have $4,500 a month for 2 years, you know, that's what Chelsea's going to talk about, the long-term care memory care in a nursing home.
Yes, awesome. So let's go in there, because I need to talk about what I'm not going to talk about, and then tell you what I am going to talk about, because it's confusing. This the whole reason that this video is as long as it's going to be is because this is just a lot of heavy stuff. So long-term care. Okay, most of the community will call this your nursing home. Okay, that is kind of an older term now, but for the sake of understanding the space, I do want to use that. We call this a long-term care community. And there are there's two different sides of a long-term care. There is the rehab side, which is, we always see, oh, you know, grandma's in rehab, mom's in rehab, dad's in rehab. That is the side where there has been a change of condition that you temporarily can benefit from some insurance coverage to rehabilitate you back up to your baseline. Okay, I'm not talking about that. Okay, what I'm talking about, and what Morgan and I are talking about across the board, these are long-term care options that are out of pocket, that do not have any coverage. Okay, I think people get confused. Can my insurance pay for any of this? No, it can't. Okay, so unless you have life insurance, or what is it called?
Long-term care insurance.
Long-term care. So I'm not talking about that side. I'm not talking about rehab. However, some nursing homes or long-term care facilities, they have, with the rehab side taken aside, some of them have a long-term care side. Not all of them. There are standalone rehab facilities that do not have a long-term care side. So I'm talking about the ones who have a long-term care side. And that means that at this point, and a lot of people think this is their only option. It is not their only option. We just talked about, you know, three different options above this option. But people will call us all the time and say, my mom needs to go to a nursing home. My dad needs to go to a nursing home. And the first thing we say is, why do you think that? And the reason we do is because this type of care actually is very complex, and this person is usually needing a lot more. I'll kind of name off some things. They have tubes or lines. They require IV antibiotics or treatments for long term. They have oxygen or COPD, or some kind of lung issue that's requiring oxygen to go up and down from a medical professional. That's called oxygen titration. Diabetes, that's uncontrolled, that requires things to be checked and somebody else to administer medication long term. Gosh, what else? Two-person assist, meaning this person can physically not get out of any position without two people lifting or assisting this person from one place to another. I mean, you name it.
Lifts,
Yes.
right? Two, talk about, yeah.
Yeah, so different types of lifts. So say it's at some point when somebody, depending on their size, is requiring two people to lift them from one place to another, we have wonderful mechanical lifts that is, it's a sit to stand. We have the Hoyer lift. We have all different kinds of things that can help aid them so that we're not pulling on their extremities, and so that's more comfortable for them long term, so that they don't get hurt, so their caregivers don't hurt. When you start needing that level of care physically, that's a reason to be in a long-term care. So, you know, if you're just needing help with bathing, dressing, things like that, that's not a nursing home. That's not long-term care nursing home. This type of care also requires a medical professional, meaning a doctor or nurses, to be on site 24/7. So let's back up there for a minute. Assisted living and memory care do have 24-hour assistance, but these are in the form of maybe a PCP, a personal care provider, or a QMAP, a qualified medication administration personnel, or, you know, they might have a nurse on, most of them do now, which is awesome, but not 24/7. And they're not always on site either. It could be on call, it could be, you know, maybe part of the administrative staff. So that's the difference. When you start getting into long-term care, you have CNAs. We don't see a lot of CNAs in assisted living memory care, or we have them, but they're not as much recognized for their certification. But when you're in a long-term care facility, you're seeing CNAs, certified nursing assistants. You're seeing RNs, registered nurses. You're seeing doctors that are licensed at this, or not licensed, but they're contracted with these facilities to come see certain people based off their insurance, things like that. That is a very different level of care. So anytime you think you need a nursing home, we want to make sure that you're not going into a setting that doesn't make sense. And the reason being is these prices are significantly different. Okay, I mean, these start at $9,000, $10,000 a month, and then they go up from there. Okay, and again, just like Morgan's car analogy, which I will forever use now. I feel like that's the best analogy ever, and I don't know how I haven't used it yet, but you know, it can start at 9,000, 10,000, and it can go up from there. What's the most you've seen, Morgan? It's been a while since I've seen a private pay long-term care.
You know, it's different in long-term care. They do a daily rate, but I think for a private room in maybe your more luxury sedan model, you could pay in the upwards of $400 a day.
Yeah, so definitely a more, and you're paying for what you're getting, right? You have medical people that they're paying to be on site. If something changes with you, with say you have a diabetic crisis, you're going to have care. It's going to be there. They're going to be able to react on it. They're going to get orders. They're going to be able to do whatever it takes. So rightfully so, the price point. But I will tell you that this setting does have, not all, but they do have an option for when you run out of money, or if you've already qualified for Medicaid. And so as much as we don't like to talk about it, people sometimes have to go to a long-term care nursing home over the other things that we've talked about because they've already spent through what they have, and they don't have that, we kind of call it that leveraging of the spend down. And that's just a whole different video here. But really what it comes down to is when you have already met those requirements for Medicaid, this is typically the setting. So some people will unfortunately have to go to a long-term care nursing home without any of these medical complexities because of financials. And that is what we are trying to avoid at all costs with our clients by educating and being proactive. Because again, it comes down to, do you relate to your peers? And are you going to feel that you fit in if you are going there financially when other people are there medically? So it's just trying to make sure we do what's best for each person. But there are times where this is the only option, and it's still better to have care than to not. And so anything that I missed about long-term care, we can always help people find long-term care. That kind of falls into our consulting program and things like that. But you know, our biggest thing is to hopefully plan ahead, or some people just need that type of care because of medically speaking. Oh, I know. Okay. Morgan talked about memory care. So let's talk a little bit about that, because most people think that memory care is memory care, but really there are two different types of memory care. There's the memory care that Morgan talked about, which is that extension of assisted living. And then there's the memory care in long-term care. So memory care and long-term care, it's more so like an extenuation of long-term care. You might have those medical complexities and you still need memory care. So there'll be a section of that long-term care that still provides that the locked environment for safety measures, the increased staffing needs to meet the care of all of the residents there. Maybe some, you know, the meals, all that stuff, but it's kind of a separate little, maybe a little wing, they'll call it a wing of the long-term care, or a section or a hallway that might be able to do that. And that's one of the main memory carers that will be able to take Medicaid straight up, because it's still actually licensed as the long-term care side. So it's still that nursing home long-term care. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of confusing, but there are two different types of that, and the settings are very different. It's important to know that the settings are very different.
Yeah. Extreme behaviors, extreme,
yes,
sort of safety concerns, safety, a risk to themselves or others. These are oftentimes folks that need to be in a long-term care nursing home.
Memory care. Yeah, and there's a point to that, right? These people with these extreme behaviors, maybe they've tried all these other things and they are needing medication management to be changed and altered and oversight in order to help them feel more calm or sleep better. You know, we see sundowning, you know, days and nights getting mixed up, and you know, these people might need more help in that space. So that would require that kind of medical oversight again. So that's kind of the differentiating factor.
The extreme.
The extreme, yep.
Yep.
Okay, so then we have this weird space, exciting, different space. People don't really know this term. They get the idea, but Morgan's going to talk to you about a CCRC next, which kind of combines some of the things we talked about.
Thanks, Chelsea. So yeah, CCRC, Continuing Care Retirement Community. I think they're more popular. Colorado doesn't have a lot of them. We have a few, but I think they're more popular on the East and West Coast. But basically what the premise is, they have independent living, assisted living, memory care, long-term care, continuing care retirement community. So they have everything all in one stop, which like anything where you have all in one, all in one, like an all-inclusive resort, you have your pluses and your minuses. I think a benefit, definitely, you can move in an independent living and you know you or your loved one is going to have care all the way through the end of life. According to their model. This is what they're designed to do. Oftentimes, though, in a CCRC, it's a buy-in. So you pay a large sum of money up front to move into independent living, and then you still have your level, you pay a little bit of rent still as you move through the levels in your apartment. So that can be good or bad. In someone who's selling an asset and looking to move into a forever community and put up a lump sum of money up front, a buy-in, that may make a lot of sense. And then having the security to know. But for some folks, a buy-in is a big commitment. Maybe you don't like it once you live there and you want to leave. Are you stuck? It does take some negotiation. You're in a contract. But so that's just one aspect of it. The other piece to really remember with CCRC is you move into an independent apartment. You then still move within the community to an assisted living apartment and then to a memory care apartment. So you're not going into one apartment and staying there all the way through the end of life. You're still moving through the stages, different buildings, different staff, different rules, you know, just everything is different. I don't want to say rules, but maybe precautions or different ways that they provide the care. So a CCRC will provide that full continuum of care, but one thing to look out for if you're looking at this level of care, is there any sort of extra support to extend your time in each level? So if you're independent and you move in and you're just needing some extra support with housekeeping, do they have a service that can come in and bridge that gap, or do you automatically have to go to assisted living because you need that extra help? So if you're looking at a CCRC for yourself or for someone else, ask about what their supplemental services are. How do they help you have the best quality of life for as long as possible in each level before moving you on? Because a move is stressful, even if it's supplemented. So, but CCRCs, continuing care retirement communities, do have benefits. You move in independent, you stay with the same people, you kind of move through their system. It's all designed to provide all the way through to that long-term care. Anything I missed?
No, perfectly said. So yeah, guys, we really hope that this is helpful to understand this space of this long-term care and receiving help, and as we get older, you know, making the right decisions and understanding it all, depending on what decision you make. You know, ultimately we want to just put more control back into a situation where there might be feeling of lack of control or fear of change. We want you to be as educated as you can, so that when you are making decisions or you're helping a loved one make a decision, that you feel confident and educated. So again, this is Maintain Me Senior Services. So we do anything from consulting at home, helping people stay independent at home, all the way through these transitions, you know, till end of life. You know, there are a lot of things that you can put in place to help people stay in these settings and age in place, such as hospice. And we'll talk about a lot of those things through our videos. But our biggest goal is to be there for the families who need that extra help and learning these things, helping make the right decisions. You know, we do assessments. So we want to be the people that you trust and know, and we want to educate you through the process. And we do that with every client that we help. So thank you for joining us today. We love doing what we do, as you can tell. And so if you ever need anything, feel free to reach out. You know, Maintain these numbers, 720-629-3050. If you need anything, we can connect you with a transition coordinator in your area who specializes in the services and facilities, communities in that space. So we want to be here for you. If you need us, we're here. Give us a call. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Signing off.